Flights are pricey, planning feels chaotic, and that trip that keeps getting pushed because you're too busy or travel's too expensive. Welcome to Points, Cards, and Travel. I'm Ross, the founder of Itinerary Boss. I've made the mistakes of doing this for 10 plus years so you don't have to. Each week, you'll get practical tools, point strategies, and expert guests with real use cases so you can travel better for way less using points and miles. Quick thing before we bring on our guest, if you're new here, go ahead and grab my free 5-step roadmap to your next free 5-star luxury vacation and the one card that gets you there, which you can find in the show notes. Now, let's bring on our guest and get into it.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Military Money Manual podcast. Spencer Reese here from militarymoneymanual.com, joined today by Ross Alcorn. Ross writes at itineraryboss.com, and he's joining us today to talk about points and miles and the different strategies that you can use, especially as a small business owner. So this is especially relevant if you are real estate investing while you're on military service, or you're running a small business like I did when I was on active duty. And we'll talk about some of the cards, some of the strategies, some of the epic trips that Ross has been able to take. And Ross, where are you coming from today? How'd you get started into this game?
Yeah. Hey, Spencer, thanks so much for having me on. And I know we're recording on Veterans Day. So for everyone out there, appreciate your service and happy Veterans Day. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. How did I get in this space? Oh man, it's been a long adventure and journey, but it really started back in 2015 when I started traveling for work. I signed up for something that's super simple. I just signed up for the free loyalty accounts with the airlines and the hotel programs. And I was traveling as a sales rep, was a road warrior for about 6-7 years. At the same time was planning all of our group trips. And luckily I got to benefit by earning all the points on those group trips. So all of that, right? Learned the different ins and outs of the airlines, hotel programs, still learning today, right? All the different nuances. But yeah, that's really how I got started. And it's been able to take me to a lot of different places. We've gone on annual group trips with a bunch of guys snowboarding. We picked out different destinations across North America on the Epic and Icon Pass, as well as group trips over to Europe. And through that, really just became the go-to travel guy in my network. And yeah, was just learning points and miles along the way, and continued to, over time, just like anything, it just continued to compound. And as I became a business owner, invested in real estate, started in 2019, now have my own travel business, Itinerary Boss, that has just compounded even more. So yeah, really excited to provide some value, share some tips, also share some mistakes for people so they don't make those, to save them a lot of money and not make some of those mistakes that I made early on.
A couple of things you mentioned there I just want to double click on was getting started with like the super low hanging fruit. A lot of military people travel for work. We call it TDY or TAD, temporary duty, or TAD. Can't remember, temporary active duty. Can't remember what the Navy acronym stands for, but just signing up for those loyalty accounts, right? A lot of time when you're going to TDY, especially in the Air Force, especially if you're air crew like I used to be, you're not staying on base. You're staying off base in Hiltons, Marriott's, and you might not even recognize it if you're new to the hobby that, staying in a Hampton it's part of the Hilton chain, right? And you can earn Hilton nights, you can earn Hilton points. And that's the low-hanging fruit right there, right? Just sign up for these free loyalty accounts and start adding every time you check in. Maybe, you didn't know you were going to be staying there because of the winds of fortune and wherever the Air Force or Navy decides to send you. But when you check in, you can say, hey, I've got a loyalty number. Can I add it to my stay? That's the easiest way to get started with all this. You can start accruing all those points, those nights, start counting towards your elite status. And that's completely free, right? Every hotel chain offers that. So Hilton, Marriott, IHG, and IHGs are actually they have a contract for a lot of the Army bases. So even if you're staying on an Army base, you might be able to earn IHG points. And then Hyatt, which I think is probably one of the most valuable big hotel chains out there. The other thing you mentioned was the Epic Pass. And I wanted to make sure that I highlight that active duty and active duty spouses can get an Epic Pass. I think it's like 80% off or something crazy. It's like $200. Yeah, $200. I think the normal one is like $1,200. So yeah, huge savings there. If you ski one day in the season, then you're going to be saving lots of money. Just an awesome military discount that the Epic ski resorts offer. The last thing that you mentioned there was mistakes. And I think that's something that a lot of people are, especially when they first learn about the benefits that you can get from credit cards, they get a little antsy, right? Because, maybe they were raised in a household that didn't use credit cards very well or use credit cards very poorly and build up credit card debt. And I just want to reassure that if you start this hobby very simply, especially with a no annual fee card, and I'm not even talking about the military no annual fee cards, but just something like a Chase Freedom Flex or Chase Freedom Unlimited, where you're going to earn a couple points for every dollar you spend, but it's pretty low threat because you don't have an annual fee, and at least it allows you to get started building up points and miles, building up your credit score. And as long as you're paying your statement balance on time, you don't have to worry about the interest rate. And I think that's what catches a lot of people up, is they always think, oh, the APR is 28% or 26%. I have never even thought about an interest rate, right? Because I'm always paying my cards off on time. And that's something I just wanted to, I always make sure that I'm telling people who are interested in this hobby is, if you're building up credit card debt, you're doing this 100% wrong. And you need to make sure that you have enough cash set aside, or you have enough cash flow where you can easily meet the welcome bonuses. And we can talk about the sign-up bonuses and the welcome offers in a couple minutes here. But if you're not in a position, especially if you're a new officer or lower enlisted, you just don't have the cash flow to make a lot of these things work. So just learn about them, but wait and take that time when you are lower paid to build your credit score, maybe with a secured credit card or no annual fee credit card. And then as your income naturally increases over your career, then you can move on to the more premium cards.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's that low hanging fruit is when you're getting started out. You mentioned all the different hotels, that's because you never know too. And you mentioned you may not know if you're in the military, are you going to be you're not probably going to a huge city where you're going to have all of the big four. If you're somewhere random, sometimes they may only have Hilton. Sometimes they may only have IHG.
Yeah.
So having those and just signing up, you're going to have those already ready to go. And for me, I was traveling a lot out of the DC area. So I was living in Arlington, but also for international flights would fly from Dulles. So you had DCA for American, Dulles, BWI. If we wanted to get good flights just on the personal side with Southwest. And then now obviously I'm in Charlotte, it's an American hub, but starting to accumulate those different, just having those, I was earning things that when we were doing it, we're earning, right? A lot of the times free flights. That's not even talking about credit cards. So I think it's first also just thinking about where's your home airport, because for us, we mainly fly American, which that's where I'm probably going to try to build that status, get most of those points. But yeah. And also you bring up a bunch of good points around if you are just getting started. I grew up in a household where we didn't use a ton, my parents didn't really use a ton of credit cards, and it was more, it was more frugal. It wasn't debt is bad, which I'm glad that I learned that. But at the same time, I got into real estate investing, which, for me, that's good debt because I'm earning equity, I'm earning cash flow. But on the credit card side, my first card was a $0 annual fee card that I learned how to do it. It didn't have some of the best points to be able to transfer, which we can get into, but it just got that. If this episode's helping you out, could you hit that follow or subscribe button and also leave a quick 5-star rating wherever you're listening? Budget habit in place. It got all of the right foundations in place. Because coming out of college, right, I had a Discover It card where, I had a cable bill. So my credit wasn't really building, right? So once it started to build, that's then when I said, okay, cool. Now I can go get maybe another tier up where they require a 670 or 720 credit score. So then I can start to do that. And then as you do it more, if you want to get maybe a higher tier card once, down the line, you have that credit score to be able to get that. A bunch of really good points that you bring up. It's really just getting that foundation and started. And then if you aren't trying to go right in, like you mentioned. It's just learning because it is a lot. But once you learn, then you're ready to make those right decisions when you do get started in it.
Right. So when you're working with clients and you're trying to help strategize their business spending, are most of your clients coming to you with like they're not putting any of their expenses on their credit card, or they're putting some expenses on their credit card? What's kind of the average client that you see?
It's both, honestly. It's a good amount of both. And when I say a good amount, there's millions of dollars that aren't being put on cards because of just not asking the right questions sometimes. So sometimes some of the biggest challenges are, I'll just use the Amex Platinum, for example, because I know your audience is pretty familiar with that. But on the business side, it's using that Amex Platinum for everything. So they're thinking, since they have that card and it's shiny and they have status, they're only getting 1 times the points, unfortunately, on a lot of stuff. So if they're running ads, if they're doing inventory, right, they don't realize that so that's one big mistake, is not having the right card stack from the get-go. So that's the first thing that when I meet with people is, okay, what are your biggest expenses? What are you spending money on? What cards do you have? Because right there, okay, are they earning the maximum value? And it's also, do you want to have multiple cards? Because if they say, hey, I want something super simple, cool, we'll get you a Capital One Venture X business because that's going to earn you uncapped 2X. There's no credit line. So you're not running into any of these juggling things. So that's that first step. And then a lot of the times it's, well, the vendor doesn't take card, or there's a 3% fee. So my thought process is, if you're earning 2 times the points on that, and then you're utilizing those points to transfer, if you're utilizing those points to redeem, whether it's, and a lot of clients sometimes will have, it's a business taxable deduction as well. And at the same time, if they're spending multiple 6 figures to over $1 million a month and not earning on that, like that's just money that's not being earned on. So it's like thinking through those things of, and even if you're spending $10,000 a month, right? It's just thinking through, okay, am I going to earn? Do I want to travel? How much also have I paid in cash for travel last year? Because some people say, oh yeah, we probably pay $20,000, $30,000 in travel, but we're using a 1 or 2% cash back card and we're not putting everything on it. Well, right there, you can pay for all your travel if you just made those right decisions. So it's really a big blend. And the reason I'm talking about the 3% fee, and when you ask, are people putting stuff on card, like that's a significant amount of dollars are being missed right there. And yeah, from some clients, it is in the 7-figure range, it's kind of mind boggling.
Let me back up there because we kind of just jumped into the whole business credit card thing. But I was reading my notes and I got curious about it. But let's say that I'm a small business owner in the military and I run an online business, which I actually do. And I actually did this when I was active duty. And I didn't spend a whole lot on ads, but I know lots of online businesses, e-commerce and content sites similar to mine that might spend, $10,000, $20,000 a month on Facebook ads, Google ads, other forms of online advertising. And they might just be putting them on a no annual fee, no cash back, no points card. Let's say that I was that small business owner and there's potential here to optimize this. What's kind of your process? How do you walk through a small business owner on analyzing their spend and what card might be appropriate for them?
We'll use the ads, for example, because I think that's a really, really good use case. And since it's, right around the holiday season, if you're in the direct consumer e-commerce space, you're spending a lot probably there to acquire customers. There's cards that earn 3x uncapped, and there's cards that earn 4x up to 150K in spend. So I think it's understanding, like you said, if you're spending 10 to 20K, you can probably get a card that, is going to earn that 4x, or you could get one that's 3x. But I think it also comes down to understanding too, like where are your other costs coming from? If it's just, I run an online business, I'm only spending money on ads, it's a little bit of software here and there. That's kind of understanding that. But if you say, hey, we spend money on ads, we spend money on inventory, we spend money on shipping, like it's just understanding the overall ecosystem and monthly spend of what you are doing first. And then it's also understanding too, personally, like do you want to do a lot of mental gymnastics and have multiple cards, or do you want to have one simple card that just earns the maximum value for your highest spend? So that's kind of that first step to build out a card stack. And then, there's systems in place too. That's the beautiful part is you're not DIYing it with spreadsheets. There's different tools and systems that you can set up at the very beginning to really help you not have to track all the different credits, not have to track, right, what's earning what on that. And that's what's really helpful for a lot of business owners is, because at first you don't want to have another thing to think about. So it's having those tools to be able to track that and make it simple for you. So then you're just earning. And then it becomes, like we talked about at the beginning, just a repeatable process where the free loyalty programs, it's just earning. And then you're taking that next step to learn how to redeem.
And this is something that happens even without business owners, but with people who are doing personal spending is they're pretty good about opening up the card, meeting the minimum spend, earning the welcome bonus. And some of these welcome bonuses that they're offering present day, I mean, the personal Amex Platinum is up to 175,000 points at the moment. I remember for years, like 100,000 point offer was good and 150,000 point was really good. And now they're just giving the points away, basically. 175,000 points. So let's say that you were talking to someone, a friend or family member who had just earned the welcome bonus on their Amex Platinum card. How do you talk to them about, okay, now you've got those points, what do you actually do with it?
Great question. So the first thing I would say is, don't go redeem it for an Amazon gift card. Don't go redeem it for a statement credit, and don't redeem it. I don't like using the portal. Some people, it's simple and there's some rebates. So like those are kind of my rules of thumb. And the reason why is on an ROI standpoint, if you're doing it for Amazon gift cards, other gift cards, paying off your statement, you're literally earning 0.6 to 0.7 like ROI on that. That's not a good redemption. So just think of it this way. You could we'll just use at 1 cent per point. If you had 175,000 points, that would be $1,750. Where you can make it even more valuable is when we talk about transferring points. That's to different airlines. I don't personally like using any Amex points for hotel programs. I just don't think it's, the value's not there. So that 175,000 points could be used to get you a business class, first class seat. And a lot of times it's 2. Like example, we're flying to South Africa in May and we used 176 Chase points for like a 12,700 that's a cash value of those 2 business class seats. Mm-hmm. So like that's where the real value of points come into play. And I like to use. We wanted to thank you for listening in and mention if you want help applying this to your own spending and trip planning strategy, that's exactly what the Reward Strategy Lab community is for. You can find details if you want to join within our show notes. Now, back on with the show. I just got an Amex Platinum business. I'm kind of pissed because, of course, the 250K came out right after I got it, but I needed it it was a pretty dire situation for a rental property. So, but like those are, and just thinking through, like when I for businesses, if I get a Chase welcome bonus or that Amex one, like that is pretty much, I'm saying, okay, this is dedicated most likely to a business class seat for our 1 or 2 big trips next year. And then my daily spend is usually what I'm using for some of those domestic trips or some of like example, Chase, Hyatt have a direct relationship where you can transfer those. Like that's what I really use sometimes my Chase points for. If we're trying to stay at a higher end Hyatt and we see that value, that's kind of how I think about transferring.
It can be kind of intimidating to understand like what airlines to transfer to and when to actually like make the booking. And like the first time you do it, it feels like you're like, oh, here's a ticket that's available, and you transfer the points over and then the ticket's gone, right? And you're like, dang it.
Yeah.
now my points are locked at this airline and I don't even want to do it. But one thing that I try to get people to do is I like to point them to pointsyeah.com, because on there they have a flight ideas planning page. And so you can put in your home airport and it'll just show you a global map of like, hey, where could you go in economy, premium economy, business, first class, and how many points would it take? And, especially for military service members, what's one of the unique advantages is you're often stationed overseas, and the local populace that you're stationed in doesn't have access to these points programs that are only available to people who can open up American US credit cards. And so you might be stationed in Germany and your home airport is Frankfurt, and all this that just reduces the number of people who have points and miles that you're competing with. And so now you can find some great redemptions from if your home airport is, say, Frankfurt or Tokyo, South Korea, Seoul. So and this is another unique advantage that military service members have, where your home airport might be overseas, and so you might have access to inventory. And when we say inventory, I mean like award space on these airlines that if other Americans are looking at it, you're just competing for different inventory because their home airport is usually a US based airport. And so they're trying to get to wherever you currently are, whereas you're trying probably to get back to the States, or you're doing adventures around Europe or Asia or Africa or wherever you're stationed.
Those are all great points. And sometimes like if we're overseas and we're flying home, or it's just a random place, if we're like, you know what, we want to fly back in business class, maybe we fly to that city because they're going to have more reward of like a positioning flight. So like when we went to Bali and Thailand on our honeymoon, we flew out of Atlanta, not Charlotte, because it had better prices for what we wanted to fly, Qatar Q Suites. When we're going to South Africa, here in May, flying to Dulles and flying back into Dulles because it has great award availability, and I'm not going to have to take 2 layovers right from Charlotte and not be able to use it. So it's having that flexibility. And if you're going somewhere specific, thinking through, okay, what airports and points.ie has a great tool will get me there. And you might have to have some of that flexibility, but having that flexibility gives you the opportunity to find some of that award availability for business first class when you're going there.
I'm just looking at the map right here. So I set Frankfurt as my home airport, and I said business and first class only. And it's pretty cool. I mean, you could get back to Atlanta for 55,000 points in business class. You could get back to Florida. Let's see. Oh, no, sorry. That's the Bahamas. That's cool. 55,000 points
right?
In business class. And so it just shows like having the map up, I think, can just kind of like help the creative juices start flowing, because it's like, oh, you know what? Like I never thought about a vacation in Cape Town, but I can fly out of Frankfurt on Lufthansa for 55,000 points to, one-way business class. Maybe all of a sudden it's like, well, I open up an Amex Platinum, my partner opens up an Amex Platinum, and now we've just got round trip tickets in business class to Cape Town. And now we weren't thinking about a South Africa vacation, but that might be what's on the cards.
Yeah. And that's where not trying to go to Italy in July, like I always just use that because that's when everyone's going, right? It's going to be harder to find. It's not always just saying, I want to go to Italy, or I want to, and you can, that's totally fine. But I think if you have that flexibility of, if you really want to do this and get the best possible deals, it's kind of being open to, we have this many points. Like, is there some region that we want to go to? And are we willing to just kind of go somewhere that we can get a good deal? Or are we willing to fly there, stay there for a couple of days, and then take a quick, cheap flight to the next location that we really want to go to? So that's what a lot of the times what it comes down to.
Just a quick note from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back to the show.
It's no secret Spencer and I are both huge fans of the Thrift Saving Plan, the military's version of the 401k retirement plan. We've both been investing in the TSP for over 14 years and are thrilled to announce we've consolidated all the information you need to know into a new course called the Confident TSP Investing Course.
That's right. The course is a comprehensive guide to navigating the TSP, breaking it down to easy, bite-sized chunks that lay out the basics of the thrift savings plan, the funds available, and the investing strategies so you can build wealth while you serve.
We both know what it's like to be a beginner and to be overwhelmed with all the information that's out there about investing in the TSP. Head over to militarymoneymanual.com/TSP, Tango Sierra Papa, to find our simple breakdown of all you need to know. You get lifetime access, and we'll have a growing library of content. And one of my favorite parts about the course is that for every course we sell, we're going to be donating one to an E4 or below.
Yeah, I love that feature of the course, Jamie. So if you're an officer, an NCO, a senior NCO out there, and you purchase a course, first of all, thank you. And also know that you're helping a fellow service member, a sailor, a soldier, a Marine, an airman, a guardian, a Coast Guardsman, E4 or below, take one step closer to their financial success.
The link's in the show notes, or head over to militarymoneymanual.com/TSP, where you can sign up for the Confident TSP Investing course. Now, back to the show.
I want to go back to business spending and real estate spending. So have you ever seen when like let's say a vendor is going to charge like 2 or 3% for using a credit card? Have you ever seen vendors have any wiggle room on that? Like have you ever had customers try to negotiate that?
So the platform that I use, let's just say someone doesn't take cards. Let's say you're working with a general contractor and you need to do a remodel, whatever. Most of the biggest mistakes happen when you say, oh, I'm going to cut them a check. If you're trying to earn points, you could use a product that I use called Melio, Melio, and I'll share that. Spencer, so he has that. But that's one that we've used for all our business transactions and absolutely love it. Good product. I recommend it to all my clients. So that's one that I use. From a local vendor standpoint, you can, so let's just say you're a business owner and you say you're a developer. We'll just use that use case. Say you've been working with your windows, doors, framing, lumber packaging vendor who does all of that, who you buy that from. If you go to them and you say, hey guys, we've been paying you, we've had a relationship for 5 years. Like if we were to pay instead of net 30 or whatever your terms are, let's say it's net 30, net 45. If we were to pay you early, net 15, would we be able to get 3% off? Sure. Yeah, Ross, you've been a great customer for X amount of years. Like we'd love you to pay early. We can do that for you. Where you're then getting more on the bottom line, where you're getting that 3% fee shaved off is on the back end, you're paying through Melio and that 2.9% fee becomes irrelevant. Now you're up 0.1, right? So you just made money. So you're then paying that and you're getting the points. So like those are some of the creative strategies that, when we have clients come on, we share and we work with them on. But at the same time, like that stuff, if you are spending a good amount of money and you are buying a lot, those are some strategies that you can use. And even, asking your, if you're just doing like a 15,000 remodel, you could ask your GC if you paid by check or if you did like 50% up front or whatever. There's always negotiating room, but I think that's something. And on the back end, if they don't take card, how the process works is, let's say Ross Alcorn LLC is the vendor. If I go, hey, Ross, I want to pay you with Melio, I put that in there. It's going to cut Ross Alcorn a check via ACH and it'll get to that. So once you set it up with one vendor, if you have vendors that you're doing, so you're not having to go in and do it every single time. So if you have vendors that you're working with constantly, it's setting it up. Once you have that, it's very smooth. So those are some creative strategies that you can use to negotiate that rate down, or even if not, I like to use it just because I know I'm getting points that then I can redeem at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times the value.
Yeah. So especially in businesses where you have like a lot of volume of transactions or they just require, it's very capital intensive, right? So like real estate's a great example where, your margins might not be that great, but things cost money and there's just a lot of expenses. And so if you can just move like a quarter of your expenses to credit cards and not have to pay any kind of additional fee on that, then it's still a deductible business expense and you're collecting the points. And so the nice thing about points is, at least under current guidance, is that's not income. That could be true even if you're a small business owner, right? Like I know lots of military spouses out there are 1099 contractors, right? And they're running their own business remotely. And, if anytime you can move any kind of expenses off of, just paying by check or paying by ACH and pay by credit card, as long as there's not that additional fee. But in some instances, if you're going to earn a welcome bonus, it might be worth paying the additional fee. And so that's something that I used to do when I was paying rent, was I would use a service called Plastic, and I'll put the link in the show notes. And I think they're charging a 2.9% fee. And so if you're earning 2% cash back, right, that you could do the math in your head and be like, that doesn't quite make sense. But if you're going to be earning an effective, like I've calculated that some of these cards, you can earn an effective 25, 30, even 40% cash back when you take in the value of transferring the points and the welcome bonuses. Now, if you're earning a 25% effective cash back, it makes a lot of sense to pay a 2.9% fee.
I personally pay the fee no matter what, just because I know that, right, I'm going to redeem my points for like that break even points, like at 1.5 cents per point. I know I'm going to redeem, right? I'm going to redeem those for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you're like, hey, I'm just going to redeem those for Amex statement credits, gift cards through the portal, it probably doesn't make sense. But when you start to transfer those points above that ratio, I look at it as, obviously I'm biased because I have a travel company. I like to travel, but right. Like I look at that as I'm doing all this hard work. I want to be rewarded, and they're going to get used in the right way. And it's a business tax deduction. So that's kind of my thought process. And yeah, on the personal side too, if you have a big expense, for example, we have land that I have a pretty significant tax bill each year that just off that property, I'm going to earn 100K Alaska miles from the card that I get. Like that's potentially 2 business class, that's potentially $5,000-$6,000 worth of value,
right?
Which one is covering me flying in business and almost covers my tax bill. So like it's a no brainer when it comes to that. So I think it's just thinking through too, like, do you have any of those big expenses? If you do have to pay, do you have any upcoming trips? If you are in the points and miles game and you are wanting to transfer more points, then, sometimes it does look more. But yeah, again, it's going back to if you are redeeming them for some of those or just using cash back, the numbers don't pencil. So yeah, plastic's a great one. And I use that on the personal side too.
I think sometimes for the listener, Ross, it can be really good to use like a real world example. So you saved, was it over $10,000 on your honeymoon on a trip to Asia? Can you kind of walk through at a high level, like when did you start planning for that? What cards were you using? And how did you end up executing that? And how much money did you save?
This was a longer term plan. We saved, I think, right around like $19,000. So it was a pretty significant amount of money. And like for us, and I think it also comes down to too, like if you do have an upcoming trip, we had a trip that we went on into Greece and I had to decide, do I want to use my points there or do we want to have a really good honeymoon? So we decided to do cash for Greece since we were going with a group of friends. And then we just started saving those points through that. And this was prior to my business not opening a bunch of business cards. We started planning that. We got married March 2025, started watching award availability in 2024. And how I accumulated a lot of those points were just booking group travel on my Sapphire Reserve. So no welcome bonus there, just booking that group travel, obviously through dining, daily spend some on that. And then my Capital One venture, that's my 2 times the points daily driver, just earning through daily spending and looking at how many points do I have. And that was over probably a year and a half's worth of just spending on those and accumulating the points and knowing, hey, we're going to have a honeymoon coming up. And then also opening through real estate, me and a business partner, we did a remodel. We opened a Chase Business Unlimited Inc., got that 100K welcome bonus, split that. So I got 50K miles. And then also for my travel company, got a welcome offer, 100K. So I was able to use for our flights there, 200K between Chase and Capital One miles, and was able to get us business class and Qatar Q suites, which if you ever get the chance to fly those, it is amazing. Highly suggest it. Definitely spoiled us.
My favorite example is like United Polaris, where it's like 242 and you're like on a sleepover with like 3 strangers and you're just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. So like now when we go to, we're flying Ethiopian Airlines and Turkish, I'm like, all right, it's going to be like, my wife's like, can we do Qatar and just like fly to Doha and like, just figure it out? I'm like, yeah, if we take off enough work, do it whenever. But no, so utilizing those, that's kind of how I mapped out that first flight there. And Qatar is part of the One World Alliance. So we're an American hub. American's a big one in the One World. You have Qatar, British Airways, Alaska. But what we did is British Airways and Qatar release, they have schedules, I think it's like 355 days out, where I knew that date. And I went and just when British Airways released it, it came, I think, that day. And I went and I had the miles ready, transferred them over and booked that. And then through that, right, you're just flying on Qatar. So that was going there. Then on the way back, we didn't want to have to take another stopover. So we ended up just using points, and one of us flew business one leg, and then we swapped. And one of us flew premium economy from Bali. That was just the easiest. It was from Bali to Doha back to Atlanta. So use some Chase points there. And then in premium economy we paid for a little bit of extra leg room.
Yeah.
So we were able to, but once you flew the business class, you definitely were like, dang. it would really be nice to have this. But yeah, no. And then my wife got a Chase Sapphire Preferred. We were able to use that towards some of the Alilas in Bali, which are Hyatt properties. So if you ever go to Bali, if you're in the States and you there's an Alila in Big Sur, which is amazing. I was just talking about it with someone on my podcast. It's one of their favorites in the US. But we were able to use Chase points there to transfer to Hyatt. So if you are going to Bali ever, check out the Alila Ubud, the Alila Uluwatu, and the Alila Seminyak. All of those are awesome. They're in different areas, but highly suggest those. And then use some of those points when we were in Thailand as well at a Hyatt Regency IHG. So the cards that we had were the Sapphire Reserve that I had, Capital One Venture. My wife opened up the Sapphire Preferred. I had 2 Business Unlimited Inks. And we actually, when we purchased our home in 2024, we had the Freedom Unlimited that we got a welcome bonus, which it was like $15K. But since I had the Sapphire Preferred, or since I have the Sapphire Reserve, I can translate that cash back into points. So something for people, because a lot of the times, and I was talking to someone yesterday, if you have a Sapphire Reserve or a Sapphire Preferred, on the welcome offer, it says for the Freedom Unlimited, Freedom Flex, all that, it's cash back on the personal side. On the business side, the Business Unlimited Inc. and the Business Unlimited Cash, which I just got a welcome bonus there, you can translate those into actual points. So you can utilize those instead of having it be cash back. So being able to do that, and you can go into your account within Chase and do all of this and move those points around. So having that strategy allowed us to fly business. I think we stayed 11 nights and we didn't try to optimize to the max value. It was our honeymoon. So we wanted to stay in some boutique hotels. We had a hospital visit in Chiang Mai that messed up a couple things. And we had both got Bali belly the 2 days before we flew home. So we went through it, but it was well worth it. And I think it's just building out those strategies and knowing what do you have coming up. I knew I had a real estate purchase. We purchased our home. We didn't want to have to bring a ton of cash to furnish the whole property. We knew this would be, a medium-term rental in 3 to 5 years. So we budgeted that and, cash to close, down payment, all that stuff. We kind of made a decision to buy this house within 30 days because it was a great opportunity. So that's where that Freedom Unlimited was 0% interest APR for 12 months. That's a strategy that I personally use because I know I have the cash, but at the same time, I just don't want to have to bring all of that. So that's one strategy too with sometimes business cards, right? If you're just starting out on a business, I really like those unlimited inks for.
Some awesome tactical tips in there. Thanks for sharing all that. One thing I wanted to highlight was if you have a big trip coming up in the future, but you don't quite have the dates yet. So let's say hey, you and your partner are talking about getting married and you're talking about after you get married, you're going to have a honeymoon, but maybe you're getting married in a year and then the honeymoon's going to be a year after that. Well, you can start building your point stash right now and you can do it at a really comfortable pace where you're not rushing in and opening a card every 90 days. I mean, when I was at my peak points and miles hobby, I was I was crushing it, right? I was opening up a card every 91 days and my spouse, she was opening up a card every 91 days. So we were hitting a welcome bonus every 45 days, which is a really hard velocity to keep up, especially if you're not doing any kind of spending shenanigans. So like I was saying, if you know that it's 2 years out, man, you could easily build up 500,000 Chase points in a year or two at a very comfortable pace. just putting your ordinary everyday spending on the cards. And especially if you're a small business owner or you have, like an Etsy or an eBay, any kind of employment or work that's outside of a normal W-2, that qualifies you for most of these small business credit cards. And you can go pick up the Chase Ink cards and build up a lot of Chase points, or go after some of the American Express cards. And I will just throw out a warning there that while the American Express personal cards are annual fee waived for military spouses, but business cards are not. So just note that, that's something that people get tripped up on sometimes. The other thing I wanted to double click on was like the flexibility of flight planning. And, because a lot of people are just used to like, okay, we're booking our flight out there and our flight back, and it's all going to be on the same, reservation number, and we're all sitting together. And that's great. Like if you want to pay cash, you have that right. But if you're looking for, these like really good redemptions, you might have to break up the trip a little bit. And we always joke, because I do a lot of the awards booking for my parents. We always joke, and because it's true, is that they always have their return ticket back home before they have their ticket out. And that's just because of like, it's always easier for some reason for me to find availability back to their home airport. And then I'm kind of scrounging around looking for, okay, I know you're coming out, or I know you're going home because you have your return ticket. Now I just got to figure out how you're getting out to, wherever we're flying them. Like when I lived out in Abu Dhabi, we flew them out to Dubai for a couple weeks, and they had their ticket home, and it took me a couple more weeks to figure out how I was going to get them out to Abu Dhabi. And then the other thing you mentioned too was premium economy versus business class. A lot of people get kind of fixated on, like, gotta fly business class, or I gotta fly first class. I need the lie flat seat. And one thing and this is totally like preference based, but one thing that I've kind of learned is usually on a day flight, premium economy is just fine, right? Like if you're not going to be sleeping, or if you're just going to be like taking a little cat nap, especially if the flight's like not that long. And having lived overseas now, like not that long is basically like anything under 8 or 9 hours, then yeah, premium economy is like usually like really nice. Like the food is better, you get better service, and you get a bigger seat, and it's going to be, like a lazy boy kind of recline. It's not going to be completely lie flat, but it's going to be enough for what you need on a day flight. And then, on the overnight flights or on the super long haul flights, like anything over 9 or 10 hours, yeah, definitely business class is the way to go, because it's just so much easier to get a good sleep and arrive much more refreshed and just like less battle damage. I mean, I find when I do fly economy as I get older on those long haul flights, like getting off the plane, I just feel like I've been punched for like 12 hours straight. So it's definitely, I think it's a necessity to get the business class flights on those overnight or those long haul flights.
I 100% agree. I think it's coming home. If you can get, I was using an example, we're going to Spain next year, and going there, it's only a 7-hour direct from Charlotte to Madrid.
Yeah.
And going there, I definitely want business class because it's not super expensive. But coming home, I'm like, do I really want to take a positioning flight for a 6-hour flight?
Right.
That I could just, pay 25,000 points and get home and just, I'll be good. Like that's like a flight from Charlotte to Portland. I think it's also important too, if you're planning any like group trips, or if you're doing any sort of spend like that, I always volunteer. I mean, obviously that's how I was doing that. So that's how I started accumulating a lot of points, but that's just another way too. Like, hey, let me get the bill at dinner. And if people are like, oh yeah, whatever, we'll just vent. Like there's so many different ways and simple things that you can do to start to earn more and more points. And one thing that I forgot to mention that you made me remember was, with that wedding planning strategy, we were also tracking different cards that were coming out. So we also opened up an IHG, one of the cards that they were offering 5 free nights at a 60K cap. So that just means you only can have up to 60,000 points a night. But those 5 free nights, as we're recording this on Friday, we're going to Grand Cayman, staying 4 nights for free at, an $800 a night hotel. That's saving us over $3,200 for an awesome vacation at a almost brand new boutique hotel. So strategizing there, and we knew that we were doing our hotel block at an IHG property at a Kimpton in Charlotte, one of those. So like we knew we were going to be staying in a suite for 2 nights. We knew our rehearsal dinner was going to be there. We're earning 26 times the points on every dollar spent. Now we know, right? Hey, we're also going to have more points for next year. That card comes the 4th free night. and an anniversary free night. So like when I go snowboarding out in Colorado, $250 free night, along with now if we go back to Grand Cayman with the points we've built up, we'll book points on 3 nights, we'll have a 4th night free. So like that's just another strategy where just from that simple move, not only did it save us $3,200 on this trip, to Grand Cayman, we got to stay in Bangkok for a night. That like just that move right there is probably going to save us $5,000-6,000 just from hitting a welcome bonus when we already knew we were going to be paying those wedding expenses on that card.
Ross, this has been a jam-packed episode full of tactical tips and advice. I love it. We're getting nitty-gritty here. 2 things that just came to mind that you mentioned about like always offering to pay for people. I remember when I used to go TDY with big groups when I was in the Air Force, there was always like a fight at the end of dinner because everybody was like, oh, let me put it on my card. No, let me put it on my card. The sad thing was like people were trying to put it on their Amex Platinum card, right? And I'd be like, no. Like you guys need to get an Amex Gold card. You're missing out on so many points here, which, sparks a great conversation. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is you were talking about with Chase cards. So like you can open up the quote unquote cash back cards and you're still earning ultimate rewards points, Chase ultimate rewards points, which you can transfer to the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Chase Sapphire Preferred. And the other thing I wanted to mention there is you can also combine points between household members. So this is extremely useful when you have, let's say you and your spouse both open up a Chase Sapphire Reserve, which is, by the way, annual fee waived for military spouses. You can combine your points together. So I think currently they're offering 125,000 points for a Chase Sapphire Reserve welcome bonus offer. And you both open up a card, you both earn the welcome bonus. Well, that's 250,000 points, and you can combine those points on one person's account, transfer them to a travel partner, and then make the booking both in your name and your partner's name. And you can make a booking for someone completely not for you. So that's the other thing too, is a lot of times people don't realize that like, let's say you have a whole bunch of American Airlines miles and you just want to fly your parents or your siblings or your kids or some, you can almost always in all travel programs book a ticket in somebody else's name. It doesn't necessarily have to be in your name. So just a couple more tips there. Ross, where can people find you and what are you working on at the moment? And just share your contact information in case people want to reach out.
Everything's Itinerary Boss, so itineraryboss.com, Itinerary Boss on all socials. The best place for people to get started, so I created a free points and miles cheat sheet. So what that's going to have, it's super simple. First shows you how you're going to earn. Then, what are the best ways to redeem, which you probably already heard. But then what I really like is it has a transfer partner cheat sheet. So it breaks down all the different banks, has who they transfer to. And then we also have a credit card multiplier sheet that really shows you, hey, if you're spending at these different locations, gas, groceries, travel, like it breaks down what you'll earn. And then it links directly to our website. So it makes it super easy for you to find the card that fits your needs best. So that's the best place to find us. And we're excited. We're working with a lot of business owners and just helping them learn the fun game of points and miles and helping, them go on some amazing trips. And, if they have a business, helping them get some good guardrails in place where if they have employees that are spending, right, having those roll up to them. And also, if they want to build, I think this is something that I'm super excited about, is if they're trying to build a really good company culture, instead of giving 5-10K bonus at the end of the year, why not give your employee, some of those top performers, 500, 1 million miles and have someone book a trip for them where they probably wouldn't go to Greece or Bali or, Japan on their own. That's really going to incentivize them to work harder and continue to do that. That's kind of a creative solution that we've been working on recently. And a lot of business owners are really, really liking that because it taxable deduction, bonus, company culture, people are already spending money, they're getting rewarded, and they're creating something that other businesses aren't doing. So that's probably the thing that I'm most excited about, because I wish I had, I wish at the end of the year, right? I was incentivized, cool, 5-10 grand's amazing. But at the same time, if you're telling me I can go here, like, I'm probably going to work harder for you and, right, stay around longer. So that's probably the coolest thing that we're working on. So really appreciate you having me on, Spencer. This has been awesome. And hope everyone gets value out of this and make sure you start planning for 2026 travel.
The cards right now, I mean, I think there was kind of a period there in the last couple of years where people thought that maybe the points and miles and credit cards game had kind of died off, but I think it's come roaring back, and there's lots of competition between the banks right now, and that means there's really some really good welcome bonus offers out there. And so I think the points and miles game is still alive and well. Thanks again, Ross, for joining us on the show, and we'll have all the links, everything we talked about in the show notes. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Military Money Manual podcast.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Military Money Manual podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
The views and opinions presented here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views of the DoD or its components. Reference to any commercial products or services does not constitute DoD endorsement of those products or services.
Really appreciate you tuning in today. Before you go, again, if you're new here, grab my free 5-step roadmap to your next free 5-star luxury vacation and the one card that gets you there in the show notes. The main takeaway from today is you don't need more time or money to travel better. You just need a simple plan and the right strategy in place. My final thought is travel is supposed to feel exciting, not overwhelming. Take one thing you learned today, apply it this week, and your next trip gets easier starting now. We'll see you next episode. Really appreciate you tuning in.